Hello and welcome to the third HorsePlayer Happy Hour Tour live stream with an actual contest. I got caught up there because we've actually done 4 of these, but the first one was just by way of introduction. This is the third actual contest. I am your host, Peter Thomas Fortitel. I'm not confused about that part. I am in the Brooklyn bunker once again and very happy to be joined from an undisclosed location in New England by a man who you know from his own Matt Bernier show. Fantastic work he does on NBC and elsewhere. TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, what's up?
How are you, Pete? I'm glad we got the camera thing situated. It looked like for a moment there, I was worried. I texted Craig. I said, are we going live? What's happening here? And he said, no, PTF is in. We are good to go. And by the way, I love the gear. The shirt looks fantastic.
Well, we're going to be hearing from the creator of this shirt before too long. I believe Jonathan Kinchin himself will be popping in. I thought I'd surprise him by showing off my my new gift. It fits beautifully. Fantastic stuff. The JK line. We'll get an update on that when he chimes in. I think he's going to come to us after our first contest race, which is coming up shortly. And yeah, as for the tech issues, I tell you, best advice I can give anybody out there. Oldest trick in the book. Turn it off and turn it on. It works nearly every time. It certainly worked this time, which is great. So let's tell the folks why we are here, Matt. We've got this contest going to be starting in just a couple of minutes' time. I'll pull up all the details, but let people know why they should be playing.
Yeah, this is the third week of the regular season of the HorsePlayer Happy Hour Tour. And obviously you can get into the playoff tournament by finishing in the top 2, but you can also accumulate points. If you finish inside the top 10, we take a look and see throughout the regular season, the overall point leader ends up winning a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. Those of you who qualify for the playoffs, the winner, when we whittle it all down over the 4-week stretch, will also win a BCBC seat. And as usual, the same way it was last year, we are doing this not only to kind of entertain ourselves and give the player some sort of an expected value or a positive EV sort of situation, but also we are benefiting charity. Obviously, the VIG goes off to TA and TRF. So it's one of those things that started during the pandemic, and we had enough fun and enough of a positive response that we thought, let's continue on with it here this year with a little bit more continuity with this regular season.
3 ways to win your way into the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. Traditionally, feeding into this Saturday qualifier costs just $20. And then, as Matt said, top 2 finishers every week move on to our playoffs, as do the top tour finishers who didn't get in by finishing via the exacta. Those playoffs are going to be a ton of fun. And of course, the highest tour score overall will win a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat as well. That $20,000, you don't have to pay anything for it. That's all added to the pot. And as Matt said, the money, that $20, whatever it is, $3 of that goes to our 2 charities. We've already raised a bunch of money, hoping to get more today. If you're on the fence about getting that extra entry, I recommend that you do. We've got about 3 minutes here. So you might be beyond being able to actually do any proper handicapping, but that doesn't mean you couldn't put in another one and just play all the 3s to support a good cause. We hope to see a lot of people get involved. Looks like we have a solid number participating once again this week, Matt. We'll give the final number. What are we looking at right now? Have you seen?
Yeah, we're just up over 235, 236 right now. A little bit less than last week and a little bit less than week 1, but still, I think now we're probably going to get into that sweet spot of what to anticipate week in and week out. I would imagine we get an uptick when we get into the Saratogas of the world over the summer when things kind of continue to pick up from a racing standpoint. But we have opening day at Belmont Park right now, so that's always a positive sign. I think it's usually a sign of better things to come. Not that I dislike Aqueduct. I've got many fond memories at Aqueduct, but it's always exciting when we can change over and move. What is it? I think all told, it might be 2 miles across town over to Elmont and Belmont Park. So we're looking forward to that. That, I believe, is going to be the first race of the contest.
It is indeed. Race number 5, scheduled post time 1 minute. They look like they're a little late getting out on the track, so you might have 2 minutes for this one. We've got a heavy favorite here in Maxwell Esquire. Not surprised at all, Matt, to hear you talk about your fondness for Aqueduct, scene of your Aqueduct Betting Challenge win a couple of years back that I got to write about in the pages of the place with the letters. Very, very fun day that was. And, a day where there is plenty of good stuff going on at Aqueduct, but something about Belmont and that turn to springtime, as Keeneland ends and Belmont begins, Churchill's about to begin. We're really in the thick of it now. And that Kentucky Derby is coming. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show as well. But let's talk about this race at Belmont. 6 furlongs on the turf. Got a heavy favorite in Maxwell Esquire, who I think is extremely live. Very curious to hear your thoughts on this one before they get to post.
Yeah, no knock against Maxwell Esquire. I think from a numbers standpoint and a form standpoint, this horse makes all the sense in the world. I wanted to get a little bit more creative from a price standpoint. I went just to the inside, the number 2 Fast Getaway for Linda Rice. This is a horse who time and time again is fired fresh off the bench, has a little bit of tactical speed, doesn't have to have the lead, but figures to be in that top flight if for whatever reason nobody else wants to go. Jose Ortiz can be more aggressive and get this one right after the front and try to come and catch me. Proven at Belmont Park, proven at the distance in the past, and you're getting what I believe to be a playable price at 4-1. So the number 2 Fast Getaway for me.
I think Maxwell Esquire is the kind of horse that I, typically in a turf sprint would be looking potentially to fade coming from as far back as he typically does. But I actually just wrote a piece for our friends over at The Races. Is based on some data we have over at inthemoneypodcast.com from Matt Vagvolgi about how differently the Belmont turf sprints tend to play. The difference between 6 and 5.5, it doesn't sound that big, but when you're talking about the structure of a turf sprint, it's pretty darn different. Whereas in those shorter turf sprints, as you would expect, speed absolutely kills. It's a little bit different when you get to Belmont when they're running the 6 and the 7. The stat that Matt Vagvolgi came up with over the last 5 years, you'd have lost less money betting every closer. In other words, you bet every horse you can identify as a closer going into the race. They're going to lose 13 cents on the dollar. Every early runner, you're going to lose 18 cents on the dollar. I just thought that was interesting because it's absolutely the opposite of what I would expect. And it made me feel a little more comfortable about getting stuck into this Maxwell Esquire as a horse to start off some picks with. Clearly not one that many people are going to feel comfortable with in the first leg of a contest, but I thought was a little bit interesting just as a potential single to start picks with, or maybe to do, a several unit pick 3 with that one and save with your Fast Getaway, because you've been extremely hot when it comes to picking winners on these shows. I certainly don't want to fade you here in the Belmont opener. Any thoughts on how you would be wagering this one, or is Fast Getaway just a more of a contest type horse for you?
I've got a little bit of a win wager on the horse, but if you look at it and say Maxwell Esquire is the most likely winner, maybe you do play some sort of a backup exacta. If you've got any kind of a price, I wouldn't use like Battle Station the 7. I don't know that I would back up with that horse using the first and second choices in the exacta. And I assume that I should probably take a look before I open my mouth. But that would be my only other thought, is if you like the 2 and you think there's a chance that it perhaps just comes in the opposite way simply because the 3's a better horse, maybe you back it up with a saver 3-2 and just play the 2 to win. But I'm playing the 2 straight to win. And I'm also playing in the horse tourneys contest that kind of mirrors along with our horse players contest here this afternoon. It's not a huge buy-in and it's not a huge pool, but it's a little bit of action for a Thursday afternoon. Not
a bad way to go. I'll mention my other horses that I'm going to use in the pick 3. I'm just going to play it really tight. In the 6th race, I thought that the 6 Lachine was an interesting long shot, mostly just a trainer and pedigree play. I'll use Coalition Building in there as well. Coalition Building will be a shorter price, so I'll press up that combination. And then I thought Saratoga Affair was interesting in Belmont's 7th race. So those will be my numbers for this pick 3. I'll play a little double as well to try to leverage that opinion. And then I'll do some smaller backups covering your Fast Getaway. And hopefully we can get off with a nice winner here at Belmont Park as the gates are about to pop.
We also didn't acknowledge that not only did the top 2 finishers qualify for the playoffs, but we have X number of people, we'll find out when it's all said and done how many entries we have, qualify for Saturday's BCBC qualifier coming up this week. So there's always reason to be involved in these horse player happy hours.
Yeah, I mean, about 26 people, assuming it's going to end up on about 260, 26 people get to take their shot on Saturday. I forgot to look at last week's qualifier to see. I really want to highlight when one of our people wins the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. We had a player go close in week 1. I'll be honest with you, the bandwidth issues doing 52 interviews for the Monster Pods, which we'll talk about in a minute too. I didn't even get a chance to look. Looks like they're off to a decent early gallop here. That should be helpful for my my long odds on deep closer. But I'll tell you what, your horse Fast Getaway in okay position here.
Yeah, decent enough. I got to be honest, broke like a shot, and I don't know if they're just going that fast or if this was just a sort of a concerted effort to wrangle the horse back. I would have liked to have been up where the one in the and we just took a bad step, and I don't know if the horse has gone wrong or not.
Something, yeah, that looked very weird and interfered a little bit with the 3 who has a ton of work to do. Oh, yeah, there's a problem with the 2 who just lost the rider as well. Hopefully everything's going to be okay there. We'll see if this 3 on closing sectionals might be able to run them down from there, but certainly has a lot of work to do.
And there was something out on the turf course.
What the hell was that? Oh, my goodness. Crazy scenes here at Belmont. Gonna have a very tight photo, and I'm going to get away
up
with
here.
This.
But yeah, I mean, an odd start to say the least.
What was on the turf course? What the heck happened there?
It looked like a pizza box. It was just, and I hope it was nothing more than just maybe something blew away. I don't know how it is down where you are. It's extremely windy where I am up here today in New England. It's blowing 30, 40 miles an hour. So if for whatever reason you end up losing me at some point, it's because we've lost power. But I don't know how it is down in your neck of the woods.
It's a little, it's cold and a little blustery, but nothing that I would expect anything that unusual. We'll watch. I might keep one eye on the replay over there since we have time. I'll see if we can identify what that was. Hopefully horse and rider are okay with, Jose Ortiz on Fast Getaway. Maybe we'll do a quick scan of Twitter. Actually, you know what? Let's crowdsource here because we've got 18 things going on and we've got a bunch of people watching this. If anybody can hear either on the broadcast or via Twitter, any news about Jose Ortiz, pop it up in the contest. And please go ahead and say hi to us in there. Next week, we'll turn this into a little bit of a de facto Derby preview show. So we don't fully need to go there this week. But what do you think? What should we have the viewers, Matt, pop in the chat this week? Should we ask them a question
I mean, we could go any number of ways. If you have a burning Derby question or even an Oaks question. The Oaks is the race that I'm probably. Not that I'm not, I mean, look, we all love the Derby, but it feels like these horses like the back of your hand. By this point, there's really not going to be anything that pops up between now and then as far as things that we haven't planned for or you haven't studied up on or whatever it may be. The Oaks, I'll admit, I'm a little bit behind on. So if anybody has any fantastic opinions on some of the fillies that are going to be running on Friday afternoon, I'm all ears because that's a race that I'm going to need to start doing my homework on pretty quick.
I also love always just when people tell us where they are. It's fun to see where people are in the world in the chat. So hit us up in there, however you're watching. We'll see if this rumored JK arrival happens. In the meantime, though, Matt, why don't we dive into this next race in our contest? We're going to go to Keeneland for their 5th race on the card. We're dealing with a mile and a 16th on the dirt, 4 and up, optional claimers 10, starter allowance 5s. How about Blue Steel to wire them?
I mean, that's the only way I saw it. I had a hard time, even with Zanesville, who I understand from a numbers standpoint makes all the sense in the world, has run well at Keeneland in the past, a quick turnaround. Why not just strike while the iron's hot? But, boy, you want to talk about a 180 from a pace situation. That horse had everything to run at in that run just, 12 days ago, and now you've got a race that looks like it's paceless on paper. Blue Steel is coming out of a race at Oaklawn Park against what I consider to be much tougher company. And looks like is the controlling speed in here. That's the only way I saw this thing. And 8-1 was a pipe dream as far as the morning line is concerned. I think this 7-2, 3-1 is probably pretty reasonable and worth considering.
I think this drop certainly is going to help you key off that race 2 back, and you can see the case easily. We'll see if I know JK was looking at these races today. Hopefully he's alive in the pick 6 and he'll pop in and tell us what he thinks. I'll holler at him. We've got some folks chiming in. Good to hear from Lucy and Lon and Howard and Tom, who compliments the shirt. I heard a rumor. We'll see if we get him on here. If it ends up being true, I heard a rumor the first run of these shirts was sold out. Actually,
really?
But check it out. OldSmokeClothing.com, where you can find them in the Money Podcast /Old Smoke, and on all their stuff, you can use the promo code MONEY for free shipping. They've got some cool. They got all kinds of cool associated gear, including a bunch of nice derby type shirts as well. I like this cheeky comment from fan, of course. Hey Matt, there's some great info on the Kentucky Oaks pod at In the Money Media. Yes, the Monster pod was a lot of fun. I will admit I have not listened to all of JK's portions yet, but I was present in body and mind for all of mine, and those shows are just so much fun to do. For those who don't know the gimmick, we get one guest to talk about each individual horse, so it gives a chance to come at it a different way. It's a nice early look, and then next week, as we drill down, we're going to have our live event in Lexington. If folks are interested in joining us for that, that you can find out information at medallionracing.com. There's still limited tickets available for that. That should be a blast. What do you have planned, Derby content-wise, Matt, for next week for audio and for writing?
Yeah, all next week. Basically, I think an article a day or two with one of them in particular over on NBCSports.com/edge have something else going on that I can't officially say just yet. But,
ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, so some folks, some friends from Europe, we'll put it that way, that I'll be doing some stuff with. So a lot of written things. There's not going to be a ton of video. There'll be a couple of clips here and there. And then obviously my pod on Monday, which if those of you who are listening that don't typically listen to my show, if you want to get involved, you got to send an email. You can take a look at my Twitter and find all the details. But this is going to be basically what I did for the Breeders' Cup. I want to do it again for the Derby this time around, where the listeners and viewers send in their ideas. So if you want to get involved, feel free to check out my Twitter and send something over.
At Bernier_Matt. I'm very curious to see and hear more of what you have going on. I'll be doing a horse-by-horse write-up. Speaking of friends from across the pond, at theraces.com, we'll have that as well. Been a lot of fun working for those guys. Let's see what kind of a break we can get here. Got a very smooth break from the outside, and let's see if we can now get over. There is a little more competition for the early lead, but we've gotten there without any effort. So I think we're going to still be able to hopefully clear off here pretty soon, though certainly the first turn was a little bit wider than maybe I would have preferred. What do you think?
Again, I don't like to critique riders, and look, it worked out very, very easily. I mean, the horse was able to clear off here, and they're not going that fast, 24-1. But the fact that, and I believe it is Miguel Mena who was initially listed, I would have liked to just, let's not even make it a question.
Shake the reins one time.
Yeah, just shake a little bit, make sure the horse clears off, and then get this one to come back to hand. But again, and look, this is why I am not a rider. He was able to very easily clear off to the front, and if the horse does not win, it will not be because of circumstances, because this is as candy a trip as you're going to find.
100%. Seeing the fractions, my initial comment about being wide, that's one of those things that we've talked with Craig Milkowski about this before. It's not all wide into the first turn is created equal. When they're going easily within themselves at a slow gallop like this, not a big deal. When you're going quick and you're wide into that first turn, could be a problem. But you certainly wouldn't trade with anybody here if you were us, Matt. Let's just see if this thing can see out the trip for the next 2 furlongs. They're starting to run,
pick it up, but
and we're starting to shorten. But we've got a big head start. Just got to keep this thing together for another furlong. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, at play. And look, I'm surprised you got 3.5 to 1. A really reasonable number, and it's fun when the race plays out the way that you think it's going to. We didn't think there was much speed in here. I'll give credit to the one who initially showed a little bit of early foot. This is actually a win, not that we're needing to plug anyone, but this is a win for the Timeform US Pace Projector. They drew this thing up perfectly. And
speaking of Craig Milkowski,
yeah. And that's the only thing I'll say about a horse like Zanesville. Again, it wasn't that I'm knocking the horse. I mean, this is a blue collar type that shows up and runs his race time and time again. Problem is you're getting a 180 as far as the situational pieces are concerned, where last time out you had all the best of it from a pace standpoint. Horse clearly likes a wet track. Now you were going to get a considerably slower pace situation with a horse who's going to have to rally from 5-6 lengths off of it. That's just not a recipe for success, especially at a short price.
Now we're off to a decent start. We have a nice little break now. So when this race goes official, as I'm watching this replay at Belmont now, trying to figure out what's going on with the pizza box. Oh yeah, there. I mean, that is. Yep. I mean, that's the weirdest. That is so strange. Let us know that there's got to be a story on Twitter about this. Please, viewers, let us know what we're hearing.
Now, the only other thing I'll say, based on that head on, it looked as though the 2 was just kind of galloping off on his own. Now, I don't know. Again, I'm not going to speculate. I don't know anything about anything right now, but it's not as though we saw anything imminent right there. We'll hopefully find out more in the time to come here from some of the reporters that are on the ground.
All right, we'll be on the lookout for that. Viewers, point us in a direction. Lots of great comments. Thanks everybody for chiming in. Let's see what else we've got. We've got AO Coach watching from Saratoga, looking for Oaks and Derby double plays. That's an interesting one.
Okay.
So I made my through associates. I have made my first wagers on this year's Kentucky Derby, and it's such a weird year. Like I don't know how much more I'm gonna bet because my opinion is it's pretty flaky in that I see a lot of different scenarios, but just cherry picking the anti-post markets. I saw a couple things this week that I thought were interesting. And unfortunately, you might want to throw rotten fruit at me or something if you're watching this, because they're not widely available in this country. But eventually, hopefully, we are going to have anti-post fixed odds in this country for great racing days like the Breeders' Cup and Kentucky Derby. But anyway, that's besides the point. But the bets I made, search results at 8-1.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's just really a pure math play in that I'm pretty darn sure she's going to be half that price. And I like I like at least 3, if not 4 horses, but this is the one where I feel super confident the price is going to be lower on the day. Mm-hmm. And then I am do you have room for me, Matt, aboard the Mandaloon bandwagon? Because I just took some 25-1 because he ain't gonna be 25-1, He'll be half that.
Well, and I think that's part of it, though, is that you're supposed to be looking at it from. I mean, that's what the name of the game is, trying to find value. I joked with you last week prior to coming on. There was a horse that you played over in Europe who, was a very, very short price, but based on what you estimated the actual chances at being, was a considerable overlay. And to your point, Mandaloon, like I said, I don't want to spoil what I chatted about with JK on the Monster Pod, but I don't care if he's the wise guy horse. I don't care if he's the steam horse. If you like the horse and you think you're going to get what you would consider a fair price, take it. And to your point, he's probably going to be 12-15-1. So if you think he has any chance, take the 25 right now and run.
And 12-15-1, not great. I mean, that's still totally reasonable. But again, anyway. This is a race where I can tell you stories about a lot of horses, and I don't know. I feel like Rock Your World is one of the most divisive horses in recent memory. There's a lot of support for him. This was a horse that if he was priced where I thought he might be priced around 10-1, I'd be all about. But I'm seeing him bet to half that in the UK.
Yeah.
And at that number, I'm tempted to take, even though I want to defend the horse and I don't believe he's simple one-way speed, I just can. It's one of these weird things. I like him, but I know in my heart that ain't the right price. And,
not to interrupt. There's a part of me, and I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts with that horse specifically. To me, he is the X factor in the entire race, because I think if anyone's going to put on a show, it's going to be him. If it's won in sort of a grindy fashion, I think it could be any one of 4 or 5. If it's won by open lengths, I think it's that horse, simply because really, based on that one race in California, not only is he the fastest horse in the Kentucky Derby, he's the flashiest. He is arguably the best bred for the distance. I mean, he really is the most polarizing horse in the race, in my opinion.
He's very interesting. Now, an angle that has been brought up, let's see what you think of this. Let's see what listeners think of this, because I did not see it this way. But people who I would describe as sharper than me have said, and multiples of them have suggested, that maybe he was helped by the racetrack Rock Your World, and that maybe that was a bit of a speed-favoring day at Santa Anita. Now, I want to go back and look. I haven't gone back to reanalyze since I heard that, but I bring it up for spitballing purposes. If it was good speed, good rail, that sort of brings him much more back to the rest of the pack in terms of his number, as opposed to a horse that I was thinking would move forward once again. So is that something you've considered regarding Rock Your World?
The date itself, I'm not going to comment on just because I don't have enough information on it. The one thing I will say, and I sound like a broken record whenever I do write-ups or I've done videos talking about Santa Anita going 2 turns. If you are not close to the pace, you don't have a chance. You just don't. And I think you want to be cognizant or aware of that with a horse like this, who, if you believe his chances aren't necessarily what the public is going to bet him down to, he becomes a very easy sort of pass situation from a gambling standpoint. But I don't want to all of a sudden say, oh, well, he had the run of the race and the racetrack, the way that the profile plays, and therefore he's not going to carry that over to Churchill Downs. He's going to be forward. There's no two ways about it. You know, people continue to talk about the idea of Caddo River. You know, if Caddo River goes, so be it. It's the only way he can win, in my opinion, is if you just try to wire the field.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, great. If you Rock Your World, I'm with you. I don't believe that he's a one-way speed. I think he can sit and still be effective. Okay, great. You sit off of a horse who, by default, you kind of look at him and say he's not in the race at all. Don't worry about him. You're going to sit just off his flank. When he stops, you take over and you just go on with it. In a weird way, he's reminding me more and more of a horse like Firing Line, who I didn't totally believe in him coming out of that Sunland Derby all those years ago. And boy, did he run a bang-up race in the Derby. He made Pharaoh earn that thing. So I'm not sitting here comparing the two as far as, apples to apples, but I'm getting more of that vibe where I didn't like him going into it, but he had run fast and he looked brilliant. Well, I kind of get that same feeling with this horse here.
Another thing I'll say about Rock Your World, and then we'll get to some more of our viewer questions. Feel free to pop them in the comments, is I really like him a lot less drawn, maybe even in the first, 6 gates. I think it could be a lot harder for him to get. I think the position you described, Matt, I love that trip for him. And if he's drawn 10 or out, I think he can get it. But I do worry about him, a horse who's never faced kickback before, if he gets drawn down inside. So, that's just one other observation I had about him. Do you buy that at all?
I mean, I'm on an island. I've had so many people tell me that it's crazy that the post position doesn't mean a tremendous deal to me. I look at it and say, if we're projecting a race that, yes, it's going to have a fast pace just because there's 20 horses in it, but you're still talking about one of the fastest horses early on. And even if he draws inside, if you got to use a little bit early on based on his pedigree, I'm not going to be terrified that, if you have to go a little bit quicker early on, that's going to completely empty the tank for that stretch run. I don't know. I mean, I just can't envision a scenario, barring him not getting out of the gate, which is something that you can't predict unless it's a horse who is, a habitual bad gate horse. I can't predict that he's going to stumble out of the blocks and spot the field a length or two. I think he breaks. I think he's going to be forwardly placed no matter what. And, look, you have to factor in the potential for kickback, but I think he's still one of the fastest horses early, no matter what.
Going to be very interesting to see where he draws, see how he gets bet, and see how it plays out on the first Saturday in May. I want to try this new toy that I discovered. Craig has done this a few times, so if I hit this button, will this appear on the screen? Oh, yeah, look at that.
Wow.
Curtis, good job getting your shirt before they sold out. Still waiting for JK. He says he's in a driving rainstorm, and we wouldn't be able to hear him if he came on this live stream. I told him I thought that would be funny, and it made me more apt to have him on, but he wasn't buying it. He always wants to look like the cool customer.
Okay. That's fair.
Here's another one we can take a shot at from Sentient. What are our thoughts on the most recent Obesos work? I love those fast 5 furlong bullets we've seen in statistical study and that most recent Barry Meadow book, how that's a very useful piece of signal where you could take any angle you want and then filter it that the same horse had the fast, I forget exactly how he parsed it, but basically the idea is add a fast 5 furlong workout to basically any trainer stat, and the win percentage and ROI both go up, which I just thought was very interesting. That the market, what it tells me is the market doesn't always respect that. As for this specific work, I haven't seen it, so it's hard for me to say. What do you have any thoughts this far out on Obesos?
Yeah, I mean, I had thoughts on him prior to him actually cracking the top 20 and looking like he was going to be a runner. My thought all along was, had he got into the field, he was a very, very live candidate if you're playing the try or the super to run 3rd or 4th. I'm not convinced he's good enough to win the Kentucky Derby, but he, to me, has that perfect sort of running style profile to round out your exotics. The problem is maybe he would have been 30-1 had he not been coming into this in such good fashion, seemingly. Now maybe he's closer to 15 or 20. And now that's just on the win end. Maybe 15 or 20 is a little bit on the low side. Maybe he's 20 or 25. But underneath, I think now he actually becomes maybe even less. Maybe he's overplayed in those underneath spots, which is something you want to factor in. But having said that, it's never a bad thing to have a 15-1 or 20-1 as far as, the amount of play on an individual horse running third or fourth.
So you believe, in short?
I do, yeah.
Very
not to win, but I think he can hit the board.
Underneath. We'll say hi to some people. Lucy, hello. How are you? South Jersey in the house. What else we got? We've got Wanda from Florida. That's good stuff. Who else we got? We've got Gary. Gary has a question for us. Let's see. What about Crazy Beautiful? She looks great at Churchill. She's been a real steam horse in the market. I'll say that much about Crazy Beautiful. I'm a fan of her as a horse, but for some reason I just feel like I like several others better at the top of this market. For some reason she just hasn't run very fast, and even by the standards of a group that hasn't put up very fast numbers. So I've remained a little bit cynical there. But am I maybe giving her short shrift? Have you had chance for your opinion to develop about Crazy Beautiful? Thanks for the question, Gary.
Yeah, it's difficult to your point. She hasn't run all that fast to date, and you can say that about another horse that I'm interested in, the horse that she defeated down at Gulfstream in Milfoy. I still want to believe, but at a certain point you have to look at it and say, well, you haven't run that fast. Now the difference is, and I'm not going to sit here and keep going back to fond memories for myself, but there's a difference between taking a horse who is slow on paper that looks good, that you believe in, at a short price compared to a long price. If you visually you see it and you still believe, and you're going to get 15 or 20-1, like you might get on Milfoy, I can talk myself into that a heck of a lot quicker than I can. Let's say, I don't know what she's going to end up being, 5-1, 6-1 on Crazy Beautiful, where you just look at the nuts and bolts and say, these two horses aren't that far apart. One is going to be 3x the price, and the filly who's going to be considerably shorter, she's not even in the same ballpark with some of the other girls that are shorter prices. So you got to let the price be your guide based on those two, just kind of head to head. I would much rather go with a horse like Milfoy. Having said that, I'm still trying to convince myself, why has she not run faster? And that's a little bit of a concern for me.
The only thing I'll say is you can make that point about the whole group. There's some part of me that's like, when none of them have run the par. I think this is an idea from Brad Free's book, Handicapping 101, actually. When none of them have run the par, maybe speed figures aren't going to be the way you're going to find the winner of that race. And maybe you want to look to some other typically secondary angles, whether that's a breeding angle, a trip angle, or they had a great workout angle. Muggsy, the handicapping Labrador, couldn't agree more with this notion. It is her dinner time. Maybe I'll disappear during this next race at Belmont. But before we move on to talk about this race at Belmont, I would love to take a look at a leaderboard, Craig, if you don't mind slapping that up there. And there it is. David Browning in first place in a big old tie. Oh, we've got the whole world here in a tie for first, but we'll run down some names, including David Browning, who we've seen in other games of this HorsePlayer Happy Hour Tour, Terrence Severinson, Steve McNatton, Todd Van Dree, Dave Nichols, Tony Joe ×2, John Erickson, Jake Jacobs of Racing Flow, racingflow.com. Good to see his name in there. Kenny Boani. Is it Daryl Parker? I'm having trouble with the little font on this. I should have pulled it up on my other screen.
Parker.
Parker. Yep. Daryl Parker. It is Daryl Parker. Okay, great. Howard Yankovic. Gosh, there's so many. I don't even know. I think we'll be here all day if I read the other 15. We'll wait till you guys separate one other race, and then I'll read everybody. I swear. I don't want to miss out on talking about this Belmont race. Apologies if we didn't get to you there. Let's talk about this race at Belmont. Our sixth race. We're going a mile and a quarter on the turf. 3 and up fillies and mares, maiden special weights. I already mentioned. I thought Lachine, the picks, really interesting type horse, poking around in the female family. I think this distance might agree with her, and this ugly paper is why she probably should be 13-1. But I can tell a story about this one. I like her. I like the favorite, the 2 coalition building, super obvious. coming off a wide trip, progressive, felt like the distance would be within her grasp. 2-6 exact, got the 2 and the 6 Dutched more or less in the pick 3 going forward. That's where I'm going to leave it. What do you think, Matt Bernier?
I went with the 1, community adjusted in here for Clement, second off a lengthy layoff. The run down at Gulfstream, keep in mind, we were at that point in the year where Gulfstream's turf was very, very kind to speed. This was a filly who was bottled up behind runners pretty much throughout. Yes, saved ground, but didn't really have anywhere to go at the top of the lane. Eventually split down on the inside. Meanwhile, you had the other horses who were already in full flight who had kind of picked up the pace at that point. And I thought she finished well enough. I think getting to Belmont, getting out to 1.25 miles is only going to be to her benefit. And from a price standpoint, I'm not convinced. Maybe she's not the most likely winner in here, but again, just from a probability standpoint, I think she has a better chance than, call it 16 to 17%, which is 5-1 odds of winning this race. I don't think that the 2 deserves to be so much shorter than some of her contemporaries in here. I just don't.
7-5 is probably short enough on coalition building. I definitely take that point. And I do see the case on community adjusted, certainly in very good hands, and looks like one on pedigree that should absolutely improve going longer. Just didn't quite have the speed. The 1 mile and a 16th looked a little too sharp for her. Stretching back out, having this conversation with you, I'm now sort of wishing I had some 1s in my picks. But I will let it ride with the 2 and the 6. Let us know out there who you like and why. We have it actually a minute here, so let us know who you like and why in this 6 race at Belmont Park. Who else do we want to say hello to? We've got this is an interesting one from Gary, picking up on your firing line example, that mentioning that he didn't change leads I think that was in the Derby. What about Rock Your World and his dancing lead changes? Matt, does that bother you at all about him?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But at the same time, I'm a stickler about those sort of things. So despite the fact that he is sort of the one who I think has the potential for the brilliance, he's got his quirks. Now, the question I have is it greenness because he's only run 3 times? Or is that just him? And I mentioned it on my pod a few weeks back after the Santa Anita Derby that, recent memory, the only horse who really sticks out in my head who was so good that they could overcome that was Gunrunner. And it's entirely unfair to be comparing a horse like Rock Your World to Gunrunner. Gunrunner is one of the best horses we've probably had in the past 10 years. So he's the only one, though, that immediately comes to mind. I guess you could think of a horse like Catch a Glimpse, but ultimately, she sort of fell by the wayside as well as she got older. So it's such a difficult proposition at this point because it's a combination of him doing things the way that I wish he didn't do, but also I can't argue with the fact that he galloped out an extra 3/4 mile in front of everybody. He's a fascinating case, and that's why, to me, he is the most polarizing horse for, I'll say me specifically, but I think for a lot of people in general, because I really could see him winning by 5. Or I could see him being nowhere, and that's a really hard read to make with only 9-10 days until the Kentucky Derby.
I'll say this: between the fact that it was the first dirt start and the way he galloped out, I'm kind of willing to just write that off as goofiness and not a character flaw at this stage. Like if I opt not to go with him, it won't be because of the lead change business. It'll
now
be,
he did it in his turf starts as well.
Right. It's a quirk, but I just don't know that it's going to hold him. I don't know. I guess it could hold him back in theory, but I feel like with his talent and with his with these other questions about him, I doubt I'll come back pointing to that. But you never know if it's immaturity. I mean, immaturity isn't what you want going into a race like the Kentucky Derby, I suppose.
No, but and now, to be fair, that could go one of 2 ways. And I know I sound like I'm always trying to make the argument on both sides of the coin, but if you believe in this horse and you think it is purely him being a little immature, well, what happens when he does mature?
Right.
You have another forward move there. And I mean, if we already are considering him, he comes into it from a buyer speed figure standpoint, the fastest horse in the race. If you think you actually get a forward move, case closed. He's the winner, but I don't know that I want to bet on that at 5-1.
And this soon, that what you were just describing him, you were making me think of Authentic and some of the stuff he showed early in the year last year, and I don't think he would have been able to right that ship in the time between the Santa Anita Derby and the Kentucky Derby this year. It took him a couple months, but it is something to keep in mind about Rock Your World going forward for sure. As we get ready to load, we probably have another minute. Oh, here's a question about a horse I'm very excited about. Nathan Kaczynski asking about what about Past the Champagne? Super cool filly. I think she's live. It's just such a tough group for me in terms of, how closely matched these horses are. But I will say this, when I was looking over the international prices, she's 16-1 there. 16-1 each way on Past the Champagne would be my second favorite bet on the board behind the search results at 8. I think she'll probably be closer to 10. I think she's tough. I think she's got a chance to make some noise in this year's Kentucky Oaks. Do you fancy her at all, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of have to when you go back and take a look at the Ashland. I mean, it's a scenario in which if you really believe in Malathaat, why wouldn't you look at a filly like this who's going to be 4 times the price, 5 times the price? I think Malathaat is very quickly becoming a I don't want to say prohibitive favorite, but a very clear-cut favorite. And maybe she is very good. I'm certainly not going to dispute that, but I'm so hesitant to take anyone at a short price in that group just because, to your point, you brought it up earlier. None of them have really, they haven't grabbed the division by the horns. And I don't know that I need to find out that Malathaat's not going to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tricky. I don't know about favoritism. I really don't. Like, I did the exercise of I'm just going to look at the PPs quickly and cold the other day. And in doing that, the thing that stood out to me the most was how much money I thought results was going to catch. Just had these attributes that catch money. Chad Brown, undefeated. And even though the figure is just a 92, she's got 2 92s against a bunch of horses that are running like 88, 89. And so I recognize it's not that big a difference, but I think that technically she might be a double fig. Like,
yeah,
I think she's going to catch a ton of money. But I think one thing we're in agreement on is I don't think Travel Column will be the favorite.
I don't believe so. I think Malathaat's going to be the favorite.
I think it's her search results.
I have to be honest, more and more time goes by, and I know I said it last week that I'm not in love with her. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but Travel Column continues to, I warm up to her more. And I know I'm almost, contradicting what I was just saying, that I don't want to take such a short price on any of these girls. But at the same time, the big concern for me with her is distance. Is she really a 1 1/8 type? I'm not totally convinced of that, but there is a part of me that thinks that brilliance or just talent overall would win out in a spot like this. Malathaat to me and search results are the 2 1/8. They're just going to see out the distance no matter what. I just don't know how quickly they're going to do it.
It's going to be interesting to see, that's for sure. I'm still a little bit Team Clairiere as well. And I'm curious to see if she can, if Travel Column gets a little bit lost in the wagering, then I could see maybe Clairiere getting a little bit lost in the wagering. And if she's somehow 12-1, I'll probably want to get involved with her. Let's see if I can get my exacta home here, Matt Bernier. What do you think? My 6 is kicking in on the outside. The 2 is running very well. Am I going to get split by this? I'll be in good shape with my pick unless this thing in the middle gets both of them.
I was going to say the 5 is powering through.
That's just sickening.
The other Chad.
That's sickening.
The other Chad at 11-1.
Oh my word! To have that horse run so well at 13-1 and get nothing is a bit of a kick in the teeth. But that's how I saw the race. Let's red board this one for a second. Let's go back and look at this beast that just stuffed my head in the sand. The other Chad is always an angle, I suppose. Taking a look at this one, had the lone race, caught some money, debuted going 1 1/8. You look at this pedigree, it's all longer than 1 1/8. Yeah, this was a mistake. I probably should have had, what does it kill me to have a couple of dollar exacta with this thing at 9-1, just based on being by Galileo, Irish bred on the bottom. This is a horse who should just be getting going on 1 1/4. The Chad Brown numbers improved so much from first start to second start. Jose Ortiz bothers to take them out. Coalition Building, I was complaining that 7-5 was too short, ends up going off at evens. I'd like to think if we weren't broadcasting, maybe I would have thought to throw that exactly in, but it's that's racing.
Yeah. I mean, I get, and that's the thing too. I feel like that's, and maybe sure, in hindsight, maybe it would have made some sense, but at the same time, those things to me are the ones that will drive you nuts if you sit back and be like, oh well, I should have had this, should have had that, made sense. I just look at it and go, you know what, I missed it for whatever reason. Whether it was, I just completely glanced over it, or I didn't like the horse, or whatever the case may be. I look at it and say the beautiful thing is we're getting ready to go to post at Gulfstream Park.
All right, let's get to Gulfstream really quickly here. We've got race number 6 coming up. We've got a very heavy favorite in number 1. What did you think of this spot, Matt? Who did you give preference to?
I mean, to me, it was Stone Cold 8.
Yeah, crafty last to shake loose was clean. My one note. Not unlike what we saw at Keeneland in the last race potentially. That's not a terrible price. I mean, it's shorter than I would have dreamt of, but with the one being 4 to 5, I think I could land on the 8. Anybody else out there want to throw any ideas for the 6th race at Gulfstream? Your case for the 8, is it like mine, just pure pace angle?
Yeah, just, I mean, going 5/8, fastest horse in the race. Sibeli and Paco clear off to the front. I get it. Safi off the claim down on the inside. Sure, makes some sense. I'm not going to argue with anybody, but based on double will pays, they're probably going to be closer to 7 to 5 and 2 to 1. But,
okay.
I still think I think the 8 should actually be favored. So fine by me.
All right, let's see. We'll see what happens there. We've got a minute to look at. We've got another breeding comment. I was talking about Galileo, obviously the world's most important turf influence, but the Dynaformers going longer anywhere in the pedigree, absolutely. They'll run on anything. All right, we've got Peter checking in, who is not far from Laurel Park. Hopefully, a regular viewer there, getting to watch our colleague Naomi Tucker, who does a great job on that Laurel simulcast feed. I guess she'll be having to make the commute to Baltimore and Pimlico, who are they're opening up this weekend as well. Let's see. This is on the race that just happened. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, Chris Couples makes the case for the one that I liked, that we got pipped.
Great call by both of you.
Yeah,
I mean, the horse ran.
And I mean, Chris makes some good points. I was really just ignoring the form, but the looking at the reversal with the addition of Lasix, that's smart. That's a smart way to look at the world. Howard has a question about Known Agenda, and if Known Agenda is taking too much steam. I mean, I'll tell you what, in the international markets, Known Agenda was 12 to 1, and I thought was kind of interesting. I mean, in an open race, it's just another one of these horses that if he's 6 to 1, I'm against it. If he's 12 to 1, I'm with. I mean, I feel like I could say that about most of the runners at the top of the market in the Derby. How about you, Matt? Any thoughts on Known Agenda?
Yeah, I mean, I brought him up with Dan Illman earlier this week on my podcast. We both kind of think he's flying under the radar as opposed to being the steam horse, just because he's going to come in a little bit slow. I think he'll be third choice kind of by default because it is Pletcher. But third choice this year might be 9 or 10 to 1. If you figure Essential Quality is somewhere in that 5 to 2 range, you probably end up with Rock Your World around 6, maybe 5. Your third choice can't help but be 8, 9, 10 to 1. So I don't think that would be a crazy number if he landed somewhere in there.
No, I'm interested. And looking back at the PPs with Known Agenda, it feels like the key to him might, and this is nothing against John Velasquez or Kendrick Carmouche, who rode him before, but cover up the first 4 running lines and look at the 2 Ortiz running lines. Now, granted, other things are happening. This is a 3-year-old colt, so it's also the time to develop, but it does feel like Irad's riding style absolutely fits this horse, and he's come forward massively. I mean, if a horse was coming into the Derby, yes, the big favorite is trying to get going late to tag us on the line. We just got to find a little bit more here. Can we find a little bit more, Crafty? Can we find the wire, Crafty? Yes, we can.
I mean, again, and I'm not going to, let's just say a little overconfident. Little overconfident. Go. Again, they're coming. Just go.
Yeah,
Go. What are you waiting for?
Don't mess around. But cover up those first 4 lines, and you'd be looking at an undefeated horse with a 90, with buyers that are right there, with the best of this group. I almost feel like those earlier races that were, okay. Oh gosh, we're at Keeneland. We better
PTF,
talk about that.
I have a bomb in here. I like the 3. Gambling Train, who's 50 to 1. The horse, I don't know if the horse is good enough to win, as I'm trying to get a bet in. But the most recent run came against considerably better, borderline graded stakes types. When you go through and take a look at some of the horses that were in that spot, she was down on the inside, and it wasn't the most comfortable positions on the rail. I thought she actually ran decent enough. In a way, this is relief. I like the 12 with Tez. I don't entirely trust her, though, especially at the distance. I will take 44 to 1, recognizing she is not the likeliest winner, the number 3 horse.
I love the creativity. I like Carly Ruth a little bit. This was a bit of a jockey angle play as well for me. I just thought Rosario would suit her and suit this situation where she can hopefully sit mid-pack, save something, and make that move. Vitesse is a horse that I like an awful lot, but 4 to 1 against this field, I don't think anything in this race should be 5 to 2 as the favorite is. I feel like we're fishing in the right pool, trying to get a price involved. From a betting point of view, how are you going to approach it?
I played her to win and show. And I know some people roll their eyes, but I mean, look, a 50 to 1 shot hitting the board is still going to come back at $12. I mean, I don't have any problem with that. So I'll be curious to see how the race plays out. But I initially thought I was going to be all in on Witez. And again, I like her. I just don't totally trust her. And I thought this 3 ran a little bit better than maybe the paper would suggest in that most recent start.
All right, let's see what happens as it unfolds out on the track here at Keeneland. We've got a minute because this is a mile and a 3/16 contest. I can speak English language sometimes. We'll get to some more questions afterwards. Go ahead, hit us up with your thoughts about the races to come. We'll be able to take a breath and look at the leaderboard after this next one. The next race we'll talk about is Gulfstream Race 7, though. If anybody has any thoughts out there on that one, I was super boring in there, so hopefully somebody else is a little bit more creative. Are you happy enough with your position in this spot? You're the 3, right?
Yes, and to be honest with you, I mean, all things considered, again, we're talking about a 50 to 1 shot. I just want to be forwardly placed and have a chance at running. I'm not saying that she's a slam dunk, but this is as good a position as I could have asked for.
No, I like it. I feel like I'm a little bit too far back off the slow pace, which will happen sometimes with Joel. He can be a pure hold-up rider, but I'll tell you what, I think that one's going to come running too. Probably going to have too much work to do. I'd love to see your horse fun get on the board here for you, Matt. Let's see. They're starting to quicken up here as they hit the middle of the turn. We'll see if you got anything left.
Yeah, I think she's flattening out, and maybe that's the issue with a 50 to 1 shot. But in the grand scheme of things, I thought the trip was beautiful.
Yeah, you don't have to be right very often, and the race is starting to unfold like an accordion a bit. Interestingly, your 3 not going to do you any good, but is like staying on.
Yeah, she stayed on.
Notably, nothing from mine. And looks like the 5 is going to win it rather easily in the end. Which runner was that?
I believe it looks like it was Vicky Oliver's.
Vicky Oliver does well at Keeneland. We know that. Okay. We know that much.
I could be wrong. Let me take a look. Let's see. If we're piling through PPs.
That quick restart I did of the computer right before we went on air did completely mess me up as far as having show preparation. Though.
Yeah, how ironic for Vicky Oliver, second off the bench, comes out of the Hillsborough down at Tampa, which I feel like week in and week out, year in and year out, ends up being a sneaky good race. Maybe initially you look at the form and you say, you don't have superstars in there. I think Micheline's a pretty nice filly. She's a grade 1 winner in her own right. And second off the bench, this is a 4-year-old filly who's done some decent things in the past. So all things considered, look, good on you if you had her. I think she was a price in this spot too.
Oh, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what.
4 to 1. Nothing crazy.
But it's reasonable. I mean, presumably, these are connections I think of too. Is like absolutely pointing to Keeneland, and the betting in the Hillsborough suggests that too. I mean, the fact that she was 51 to 1, just out for a jog there, makes perfect sense that she would step up in a spot like this. I was looking for a little bit more of a price, as were you. So we didn't get that one. We didn't get that one right. But the good news is we have a minute to breathe now. And
I'll tell you what, if every time I took a flyer on a 50 to 1 shot and they ran like that, I would be thrilled.
It really wasn't bad. It really wasn't a bad race with the staying on late. I wonder. I mean, maybe even more distance is going to be the friend there, and probably a little bit of class relief, but definitely an effort that would win some races, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look. All right, we got some Gulfstream stuff. Let's see. Taking a shot with the 2. Good work. Tough start in last race. Who knows? Yeah, this is kind of a who knows race. Did you have a selection in this Gulfstream event, Matt?
The next race 7?
Yes, that's the next race. Is that our next contest race, or did I mess this up?
It may be. I got a million windows open over here.
Yeah, I think we have some time. We can let's wait till we have betting and stuff.
We have Gulfstream 7 and Belmont 7 that'll be relatively close to one another.
Gotcha.
But yeah, if you want to go over Gulf 7, we can do that right now.
Yeah, let's talk about it, and we can always come back to it. I was super boring in favor of the favorite. Just thought was tough, consistent performer. I thought would be closer to the pace back, stretching out. I wasn't concerned by the barn change. It just looked very logical. We'll see what kind of a price we're going to get on the 2 Bimini in this spot.
Yeah, so before I talk about the horse that I like, I'm curious your thoughts. Winner last out at this same level for Zerpa's barn. Every right to come right back and win again. What do you make of the turf work on April 16th?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. It's definitely unusual. I mean, it's a good looking work. So it's hard to get upset about it. But are you thinking maybe it's some type? I mean, on breeding, you wouldn't think that she's going to have a future on the turf. This is a 5-year-old mare who only stepped on the stuff once. Granted, the one turf race she ever ran was I would call indecisive at best. I don't know. Maybe Zerpa just the horseman aspect. He sees something that made him think that maybe turf would agree. I was just hoping maybe it would be just help in terms of physical preparation or something to do with her feed or I was trying not to pay attention to it. I guess is what
I think the feet sort of scenario is probably the most likely. She's a 5-year-old. Maybe she does have a little bit of a sensitive foot situation, but it just stood out like a sore thumb to me that, this is a horse who she's done all of her work with the exception of one turf start early in her career on the weeds. And then all of a sudden we have this one random turf workout, but neither here nor there. She beat a decent enough field, 2 next out winners. I could definitely see her coming right back and winning. The horse that I was interested in, and she's taking a little bit of money, is on the outside, the 7 Raspberry Ballet. I'm a big fan of, I don't love career maidens until they break their maiden. And then I look at it and go, oh, maybe they figured something out. And the most recent start was only the second time going out for the Lerman barn. This was a horse who was 0 for 15 going into that race with 8 second or third place finishes. And she's not blessed with early speed. And I think that's a major concern, especially at Gulfstream Park. But the way she won could not have been any easier. She was geared down for the final 16th of a mile beneath Bravo. He comes right back. And no, there's not a ton of speed in this race either, but I do like horses with upside. Maybe this will be too much too soon. And I know I say upside, and maybe it sounds like I'm, again, contradicting myself in that she's run 16 times. How much better can she be? I think there is that element of, oh, the light bulb is on now. Let me see what we've got. Maybe we can handle that hike up against a group that outside of Bimini, I'm not really terrified of anybody. So I'll give the 7 Raspberry Ballet a look.
It's clever. I definitely see what you like about that last race. I have a positive and a negative I'll share. Sure. The positive being, this is just very interesting. If you look at the Timeform US race rating, even though you'd think this is a big jump up in class, it's actually the race rating of the last race came back in 91. And this race is predicted to have a rating of 89. So that's interesting. I think where it gets tough is the pace scenario here. Gonna need some help on the front end. And I see the leaderboard is on the screen, and this time I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to pull it up on the larger screen so I don't mess up with anybody's names. And we've got some familiar names here, including a fellow we were just chatting with in the chat, Chris Couples, currently in first place with 6610. PJ Prisketis, who I found out in the chat that I was saying that name correctly last week. Trying to remember if PJ ended up in tour points position. Be interesting to see if we can get somebody get our first person with 2 tour scores. Maybe PJ is a candidate for that. I know that name was up there at the leaderboard a whole lot last week. Can't remember if it ended up in the top 10. At some point, we'll pull up the tour leaderboard as well. 60-40 for PJ. Pat Qualiero, 60-20. Terry Crump, 55-60. Greg Lewis and Aaron Reed also with 55-60. Derek Vogt, 52-60. Nicholas Verderese, 52-50. Joe Solito, 52-50 as well. Lots of my fellow Italian Americans in here. Like to see that. Casey Rivera currently in 10th, 51-50. That's the top 10 right now. We ended up with 239 entries, which means that the top 24 today are going to win their $179 entry into the Saturday Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge qualifier. At the end, we'll run all of those names down. Looking forward to seeing how it all plays out over the course of the next 2 races.
We definitely, it's a double-edged sword. You and I have talked about some of the logistics about the contest week in and week out. When you have a 7 or 8 race contest, I mean, the leaderboard is going to be tight, and it sort of lends itself to moves up and down, which I think, again, from an excitement standpoint, as far as we're concerned with the broadcast, it makes things a little bit more interesting.
Definitely a lot of fun. I'm going to see if we can get this. I'm going to see if I can send this to Craig. I can probably share it myself, but I'm not clever enough to do that. So I'm going to send this to Craig and see if we can get this popped up on there as well. So far, it's just 20 different names. As the season goes on, it'll certainly be more interesting to see how this plays out and follow this like as a tour, as this idea that we can compete. Horse players can compete all season long for this low buy-in. It's obviously it's going to be extremely rewarding of skill to be able to survive this crucible, this test of your 8 best scores out of 20 contests. And there you can see it up there right now, the way that it's unfolding, and hoping to have a lot of drama and interest and excitement as people compete, not just for that $10,000 seat that you get for winning the tour, but also to qualify for those extra spots in the playoffs as well. So we'll see if any of the same names end up popping up there at the end of this week for us as well. Why don't we get back to some questions here, Matt, and see what else we have going on. We have another comment on Known Agenda. And I'm glad, Nick points out something that I should have pointed out. I was mentioning IRAD as the potential change. Well, that was the first start with IRAD, was also the first start with blinkers.
Right.
So somebody could say it was as simple as that. So I probably shouldn't have overlooked that point as something that's really helped take this horse and move forward. Nick also mentions he thought that the third in the Sam Davis was better than it looked. We have a question about another question about Highly Motivated and if he can turn the tables on Essential Quality. I can tell you a story that he can. I can tell you the story that Chad Brown and the way Chad Brown handles his runners, and the fact that he's just so progressive as compared to Essential Quality, who's been running these huge races since he was 2 and hasn't fully blossomed. I mean, Highly Motivated, in terms of speed figures, I should say, you could definitely tell a story about Highly Motivated, but we talked about lead changes before. I was a little concerned that lead change for Highly Motivated, and we talked about this last week, was a sign that maybe he didn't want to go this far. So between the money I think Highly Motivated is going to attract, maybe a B for me in some multis. I wouldn't be surprised in the least to see him win, but I don't see keying my strategy around him. Where are you with Highly Motivated?
I'm as big a Chad Brown believer as there is. I can't talk myself into this horse. I just can't. And it does make me think again when I hear how confident Chad is in this horse. I don't doubt the ability. I just don't think this is what he wants to do. I think long-term, we talked about it last week. He feels like Practical Joke to me. Feels like a one-turn, 7/8, maybe a miler. Not to say that he can't run well at a mile and a 16th or even a mile and an 8th. I'm not convinced that longer is going to be better for him. And the way that I've laid it out is he had so many things go his way in the bluegrass. He had the lead, which again, typically we see horses run their best when they are on the lead, allowed to do whatever they want. He had soft fractions 48 and change for a half. They're going to go faster than that in Louisville next Saturday. And it was at 1 1/8 miles, and now he's going to have to stretch out to 1 1/4 miles, and he still couldn't put Essential Quality away. And again, that's not a bad thing. I mean, Essential Quality is the champ. He'll be the favorite next week. But now you have to deal with him. You have to deal with Rock Your World, Known Agenda, anybody else that you want to name. If he couldn't beat Essential Quality last time they squared off, I just don't see a reason why he all of a sudden can next Saturday.
Fair enough. I mean, I think you just have to go on that idea that he's just so progressive and the trainer confidence. But I think you may be right that he'll do some terrific things, but I'm not sure I want to get too stuck in the first Saturday. And at the same time, I'm a little flaky in this race, and I'm not going to talk anybody out of it. It's just, there's not a world in which he's going to end up my quote unquote pick.
You know what? And maybe he ends up being like a Haskell horse. I could see that sort of thing, but I'm very dubious about added ground for him. That's all. Yeah.
Let's take a look. Nick Sievers. Oh, here we go. Contest players can relate to this. Pick the 4 by accident in this spot. Sometimes that's as good a way as any. Chris is back with a Gulfstream play. Mentioned the 2 before the 2-1 exacta, keeping it simple. I think I could see that playing out from a pace point of view. Oh, Drew Coatney, the business manager of In the Money Media, chimes in. He's a big fan of the shirt. I don't know, Drew, if you were smart enough to get one before they sell out, but if I know JK, he's cooking up another one in the works. People will have to know and order early the next time around. Stay tuned over at Old Smoke Clothing, and you can go directly to all our t-shirts and fun stuff in themoneypodcast.com/Old Smoke on that one. Remember, use that promo code MONEY if you want to get some free shipping in that one. We've got some international viewer. Always like to hear from them. Hans Andres, greetings from Chile, from the Concepcion Riding Club. Very cool. Very cool. Appreciate that very much. Hit us up with your questions if you want to talk a little bit of early Derby chatter. We'll get ready. We're going to have actual PPs for these races on Monday and Tuesday. I think, Matt, I'm going to take a wild guess that, like me, by the time you can actually physically have the Derby PPs in your hand, you won't really need them. Is that safe to say?
No, I mean, in all honesty, I'm going to start getting it. I'm going to get a head start now on work that's due next week, probably in the next day or two, because barring an outrageous post-draw situation or a horse that I like drawing the 1 hole, my opinion is not going to change a great deal between now and next Saturday. I mean, I'll just come right out and say it right here. I'm picking Mandaloun unless he draws the 1 hole. I'm just going to – I believe in the horse. I think he's – so I would also be curious. Now, I have not read Meadows' new book. Maybe you have more info on this. You talked about that 5/8 drill. I mean, this horse has been just lights out in the morning so far. Does it have to be the last work to be the 5/8 drill, or is
I think it's between the – I think I'd have to look. I think it's between the races, and it doesn't have to be a bullet either. I think it has to be like in the top certain percent. I've got the book sitting here somewhere. I should pull it out and read from it. That's really worth, if you're interested in the sort of statistics behind racing. Let me get the title exactly right too on the Barry new book. We've had the pleasure of having him on the airwaves a few times, but yeah, he has the parameters in there, but I don't think it has to be the last work. I think it's since the last race, because very often, of course, you'll see that quick work and then they'll do something much more maintenance-y. Different trainers have different patterns, of course, but you can generally say that super fast work is often not the one right before. But I mean, he looked good. Mandaloun looked good to me. Have you developed more of an excuse, Matt, for what happened to Mandaloun last time out?
No, I mean, the only thing that I can come up with, especially after hearing the trainer say there was no real rhyme or reason, I'm going to go back to, think about it when you played sports, or you go for a run, or you do anything active. All of a sudden, you take a little bit of a funny step. Things don't quite feel great. You're not injured by any stretch of the imagination, but you're not all there. I'm going to just use the idea that the start of that race down in Louisiana, I believe that little stumble may have kind of set him back a little bit and kind of throw things off. Then he ends up with that wide trip. reasonably close. I get it. The pace stayed together, and he was the only real part that backed up. I'm going to chalk it up to something as simple as that, and hope that there is reality there, but knowing full well that it could be fool's gold and that he could end up running 14th next Saturday in a field of 20. I'm fully readily admitting that that's a possibility.
That's the nature of the game. You got to find the horse that's going to be the right price, and you accept it when it doesn't come your way. It's like the theory of I was trying to work this analogy into something I'm going to write, and it's like the quantum theory of time travel. Right? There's not one reality. There's not one timeline. There's like a bunch of different like timeline possibilities. I think that's the right way to look at horse racing. If you're too deterministic, you're going to end up being the cat that chases its own tail, always like overreacting to the last thing that you saw. That could be, we were talking about it before when we were talking about red boarding. That could be the problem when if you just assign, oh, this X happened because of Y and Z had to happen. Didn't realize this Belmont race was coming up so quick. I think you have to look at it much more like holistically, probabilistically, where there's a whole bunch of things that could happen. And just because the way that you saw it didn't happen doesn't mean you made the wrong bet. You're not wrong. You can't grade by outcome. You have to grade by decision and by decision-making process. Let's very quickly talk about this race at Belmont, Matt Bernier, because they're going into the gate. I thought the other race was going to go first. What do you like in this non-winners one? I
mean, look, if Aunt Cat runs that run most recently that she did at Aqueduct, she's probably just going to win. I need her to prove to me that actually is the case. I liked Pleasant Orb. The one is the 3-year-old. I'm hopeful. Again, she's fired fresh in the past. I'm hopeful we get a pretty solid move here in her first start as a 4-year-old. She's been gone for some time, but she's got a nice, steady, sort of progressive set of works coming into this race. I don't think fitness will be the problem. The question is she good enough? But I like the one.
I thought the one for Matt. I like the 4 Saratoga Affair. So we're both going against the favorite here. This horse to be very interesting if ready off the long layoff. Feels to me like a lot of these Chad Brown runners. He's been quiet by his own standards this year. I was talking to Frank McGoey about it on the Oaks Monster Pod. You can check out on YouTube. And he said he felt like the reason that Chad Brown had been quiet by his own lofty standards is that he'd had them in bubble wrap waiting for Belmont and Saratoga, looking for big things for these Chad Brown returnees. And then we've talked a lot about handicapping books just organically. Another one I'll mention, I will give the details on the Meadow book too, by the way, but Mark Kramer, who I had the pleasure of having on the podcast this week as a guest, talking about his new book, Old Man on a Green Bike. In his classic kinky handicapping had the angle that he called Love at Second Sight, which is horses, whether they're coming back for the first 3-year-old start, first 4-year-old start, you look at their old figure and you project improvement. If you project improvement for what Saratoga Affair was running when last seen on the racetrack, should really handle this field, and you're getting 5-1. So we'll see. Not. I don't love being between horses right there. And Aunt Cat certainly had a nice beginning and is a danger. So we'll see what happens. Are you all right with where you are there with Pleasant Orb?
Yeah, I mean the question now is she good enough? Do you have any kind of finish here as you turn for home? But stalking a horse who really has a one-off race to her name, yeah, I would take my chances from here at the price. It looks like, though, that one-off might be legit.
Yeah, she's going very strongly on the lead, but you might have a little down there on the inside. I'm looking empty. It's going to be tough for anybody to get to this Aunt Cat from here. See if you can run up for second for anybody who had the exacta, but it does look like it might be going the other way. We'll see, though. Yeah, the 3 is finishing.
This is a big performance.
Yeah, the Aunt Cat was awesome. I mean, no urging in the stretch, and really clearly built off that last effort. So
now here's going to be a dangerous piece, and this is a question for you as far as just your philosophy with a horse like this. And she's going to be in a graded stakes race next time out. I don't know what it'll be, but this is 2 races in a row that she's run off the screen when she's had the lead. What if she doesn't make the lead? I mean, do you look at it and say, well, she's just the fastest horse going up against whomever? And I know this is all hypothetical. You need to see what the field looks like, but that would be my only concern with gaudy figs. What happens if you don't get everything your way?
There's 2 things that make me feel okay about Aunt Cat and her ability to sit and pass horses. One is the hands that she's in with Belmont, who, with perhaps the very notable exception of Hidden Scroll, who he just should have let roll anyway. It seems like he typically has the keys to get horses who can relax. But I also do like, looking back to the Aqueduct March 13th race, that you look at those fractions and cut out that day, and they were coated blue on Timeform US, suggesting that she was within herself. She wasn't like pulling and running inefficiently early. So it would be a concern. And, we'll see what happens depending on how the field is comprised when this theoretical becomes actual. But I wouldn't counter out the ability to be able to settle a little bit based on what we've seen.
Top of my head, I mean, I assume the Acorn is still on the Belmont undercard?
I believe it is.
I mean, I would think that's a very reasonable spot. Give her about 5-6 weeks, especially if she earned a fig comparable to that most recent one. I mean, if she's got a couple of mid-90s going into it, you have to assume you're going to a grade 1.
Against this 3-year-old,
yeah.
She's 4.
Oh.
Which I didn't. I thought she was 3 too. I just went back down to the PP and saw. So that would be, is that Ogden Phipps then territory? You might be looking at something pretty salty. I was going to say, against the figures she ran the last day.
Yeah,
you'd be feeling real good against the 3-year-olds and the sort of subpar figures they've been rolling. The older fillies and mares, quite another story, depending on which one of them choose to show up for a race like that.
That changes the equation a little bit. Yeah, because to your point, now you're going to continue to stretch out, and it's not like you're going to get a bunch of cupcakes.
Right.
I mean, there's going to be somebody big in there.
You could get something crazy even.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. I don't know I haven't heard what the plans are coming out of the Apple Blossom. That's a race we should talk about for a minute, but let's check in with our viewers. We already talked about our picks here at Gulfstream, so we're set on that. And where are we in the contest? We have
2 to go.
Okay, we have 2 to go. So we've got this race at Gulfstream, and then we wrap at Keeneland.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Got about 7 minutes until Keeneland 7.
Perfect. So we can button up this race, and then we'll turn our attention. Gary asks if there are fans at Belmont. I don't think yet, though they've been approved. But that's a great question. I haven't heard anything about it. I think it would have been more of a more of a news story if there were. And I didn't see any humans when they showed the stand. So I think it's coming soon, but I don't think it's there yet. We had a question about the essential quality workout, which I did hear. I haven't seen this one yet, but I did hear other people say similar to what our Adirondack Schiller is saying, that he didn't look particularly good in the last workout. Again, it's a little bit pointless for me to show that, I guess, in that I haven't seen it, but I'll throw it out there as a talking point, Matt, in case you had a chance to see it or had an opinion about it.
I haven't seen it, but all I'll say is kind of, again, if you took away the name of the race, if you said it was the 6th at Belmont on a Thursday, as opposed to the Kentucky Derby, and you thought there was any reason to go against a horse who was not appreciably faster than anyone else in the field, why would you take him? And I'm not disputing the fact that he is, to me, he deserves to be the favorite. He's done nothing wrong in his career. But if you find any holes in any of these horses, don't bet them. And I don't mean to say that in a flippant way. I think that's just what you're supposed to do. It's put the ego aside. If you're wrong in the Derby, you're wrong in the Derby. A lot of people are wrong in the Derby. There's 20 horses in the race. Only one of them can win. I would say if you have any reservations about a horse like Essential Quality, you shouldn't be betting him. Because he's going to be 5-2 or somewhere thereabouts come post time.
I agree. He's going to be short. Perrin, come say hi to everybody. Perrin's dressed in her. She's ready for Taekwondo.
Hello, Perrin.
Wave to the audience. You're live streaming to the world. Matt said hello. Say hi, Matt.
Hi. So, Daddy,
we're used to animal eruptions, not so much human ones. What is this very fast? Because we are live on air here. But I think people are enjoying seeing you. So go for it. What is it?
Yes, I found a Nintendo Switch in your suitcase.
What? No way. Who would have put that there?
But it looks like it's a new one.
Huh. Well, we'll talk about that later. Nintendo Switch, not a sponsor yet, but maybe we can dream, can't we? We can dream. All right, go to Taekwondo, have fun. We'll talk about it later. Well, that surprise is out the window, but
Is there news that I should know about? Is Nintendo coming aboard? Have you been really burying the lead?
I am very intrigued by talking to some of these digital horse racing people. I think I need to understand a little bit more about what NFTs are first. But yeah, there's
busted. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's
highlight of the show this week.
That's too bad. That's too bad. The story there is when we were traveling, we actually it's a terrible story. We lost a Nintendo Switch.
Oh no.
And this was going to be, I was kind of hemming and hawing if I was going to say that I was going to either let her know that I bought another one, or I was going to invent some sort of fiction that I'd somehow recovered the first one. But anyway, that decision is now made for me. So that's easy. That's easy.
Too funny.
Oh, it's ridiculous. All right, let's see here. Bimini got bet down to 6-5. That's not exciting at all. I apologize, Matt. Remind me your number here.
7, Raspberry Ballet. This is the exact same trip that she had when she broke her maiden. Now, again, taking on tougher, you never know if it'll work, but this is the same move that she made as well.
She's closer than I thought and running, and the 2 doesn't have to get a good trip from down in there. And the 4's not going to finish. I kind of like if you can be 3 wide at Gulfstream today, I kind of like where you are. And we're going to see what how he's going to play his hand on Bimini, who also looks to have horse.
I was going to say, I think Bimini, if you can just get her going right now, I think she has every right to win from here. It just took a little while for her to find a little bit of daylight, but I think she should be home and hosed by now.
Yeah, I think so too. And it does. Hey, was it Chris? Somebody said play the 2-1, and I think that is
21.
Looking very likely to happen here. So that was a very nice. That was a very nice pick right there. Yeah, I like this idea of people sending in their plays, giving us something a little bit extra to root for. Got another quote here, another comment here from Derek, who was up there. Very nice. Finally a day where I could check in, and finally a day where I remember to actually cap and not just donate to the cause by throwing darts. Good to see you, my dudes. Good luck on the finish, everyone. Good luck to you, Derek. That's very, very cool. And so we go to Keeneland for our last race. Let's see if we'll have time for a leaderboard update before it. No, I don't think we will. With 1 minute to post, I think we should just talk about this race really quick. Yeah. What do you have for this one, Matt?
I have the 9, honorably. I like horses, especially for barns that don't typically fire first out of the box. She showed early speed. And now second start out. Brendan Walsh's barn typically moves forward. Blinkers go on. She's 4-1. It's not an attractive price, but that's where I went. Honorably 9.
We'll give Chris let him throw his idea out there. He's on the favorite in this spot. Stand By You. Gonna mess around. He's giving us a superfecta. It looks like 2-9-8-10. 2-9-8-10. We'll see if we can get that 2-9-8-10 in for Chris in this last race of the contest. And yes, we do have a comment about Nintendo. We can upgrade houses. Yes, we'll see if anybody knows anybody. We're willing to talk. We're willing to talk. It would be cool to have. I don't know if there's any horse racing games for the Switch. We'll have to look into that. Why was she snooping around in there? I got to learn better. When they it's really silly of me. I shouldn't have done that.
Well,
I'm trying to remember what I liked in this race. I did look at it. I looked at it, and the notes are not clear.
Put it this way: there's also a part of me that's I don't want to. I mean, look, 3-5 on the 2 to me is entirely too short. But there's a part of me that looks at that and says, "Is that, are those the connections just pounding this horse?" Because, I mean, there's just a very, very short price on a horse like this.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it. You can see it from a trip point of view. I mean, this horse, that was just a horrific break last time. But I mean, didn't break again.
Get another bad one, yeah.
So I mean, that's becoming a habit, and she's going to have to run to those 2-5 odds to win from there. Yeah, I mean,
stop the race right here.
This is looking very good for Brandon Walsh. This honorably, you gotta absolutely love it. And this is that front running ride that we like, right? Getting some distance and throwing down the gauntlet. Try to put the sword to the field. Don't wait for them to get to your throat latch and invite them into the race. Make them come and get you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, win, lose or draw. I think you got to be thrilled with where you are right here.
You know what the wild thing is? Somebody's really rolling from the back of the pack. The green cap on the outside. I mean, as long as the 9 doesn't come to a complete stop, I think she should be good. But then the green cap is trying. The 9 is coming to a crawl.
She's stopping. It's going to be dead. I think she's beat.
It's the deuce.
Oh, the favorite coming from all the way back. Let's see if Chris gets his super here.
Holy smokes, did she stop?
That was unbelievable. 210-1. Was it 210-1-9?
No, I don't think the 9 hung around for 4th. I could be wrong. She came to a crawl.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, well, that's funny, and that's where a lot of people say, "Well, you went too fast." But I mean, I said it during the race, and I'm not going to back off it now.
No,
it's to me that is generally speaking on the dirt the right way to try to ride. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And now you know something about her, and maybe the next time in the exact same spot you try to save a little, or you get cuter. But this winter was just very good, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, now look, if you want to look at it the other way and say there's talent there, clearly she needs to iron out the gate situation, because you're not going to be able to do that against better horses. You can do that breaking your maiden. But, I mean, this is 2 runs in a row where she has really rolled at the end. And if she can just get the starts ironed out a little bit, she becomes very interesting going forward.
Rosario, such a strong finisher, certainly showing it there. This Chris's quote here sums it up pretty well. 2 is a racehorse, has some things to iron out. 210-1-3, Tom says this is going to end up being. Let's see.
Boy, the 9 came to a stop.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I really thought a furlong and a half out that you had to be on the board, if not still able to win. But sometimes when that tank of gas is empty, there's nothing you could do. You just stall out on the highway, JK style.
And I'd be very curious to see. I mean, just at face value, I don't know what the dam's details are, but this is an honor code filly out of a more than ready mare. I mean, maybe this is just one of those instances where she has good early speed, but she is not cut out for a sprint distance where you empty the tank. You basically just go, down to the board the entire way. Maybe you try to stretch her out in distance and try to just kind of ration out that speed a little bit. But it's always a concern when you see them come to the stop that they did in that spot. This is 2 in a row now.
Distance and experience, though, are both the friends of the honor codes that I've seen. Very, very much AP Indy-like in that in that regard. But that did seem more than ready than honor code in terms of the pop. Not that more than ready. Just I don't mean to say that more than ready's pop and stop. They're precocious and they're fast. But we'll definitely one to keep an eye on. An interesting filly who will surely make her condition when she gets to the right spot. So we are getting ready to wrap up. If anybody has any last questions for us, hit us, because as soon as we have this leaderboard, we're going to read it and hit the road, folks. So appreciate everybody coming in here and sticking with us this week. Nice shout out to producer Craig, doing a great job as always. We'll get his thank you in nice and early. Great job pushing all the buttons, DJ Unstable himself, especially this week where we ran him ragged with these Derby monster pods, which I encourage everybody to check out over on our YouTube channel. Oaks Monster Pod, Derby Monster Pod, 1 guest per horse. We had a lot of fun putting them together. They're long, but we put all the time codes in there. You can do what you want. You can hop around, just listen to a few horses, or you can sort it out and do the whole thing. And the podcast versions will be appearing over the weekend, so that might be a preferable way for audio documents of that length to consume them. I can't. I'm having trouble with my mouth words here late in the show, Matt. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I think all around it's, from a content standpoint, I can't. You deserve almost all the credit outside of the contributors to it, but the amount of content that In the Money is put out over the past handful of months, but specifically leading into this coming week, is really something that you should be proud of. It's been an impressive amount of quality content. It's not just stuff that's thrown against the wall to see if anybody's going to take to it. It's top to bottom, and it hits every corner of the industry, which I think is the most fascinating piece, which you can't say about everything and everywhere that you go.
Well, thank you, my friend. It's been, the first step we made towards making a network was getting you on board, and it's been a fun ride, and will continue to be so. For folks out there looking to keep track of everything we've got cooking, I say sign up for the email. That's probably the easiest way to do it. You get blog notifications, but they can be inundating, and the email will curate everything nicely for you. InTheMoneyPodcast.com/email. That you can find out the details about our Plus service if you're interested in that. And that'll tee you up with little synopses of the shows every week so you can pick and choose. We definitely encourage people to subscribe to the main feed on iTunes as well as any of the individual show feeds. That's like a great way to help us out. But in terms of your own convenience, the idea of being able to sign up for that email, I think that's a great way to do it. And we've got some really cool written content as well that I don't want to sell short. Pretty detailed profiles on every Kentucky Derby entrant. So make sure to check those out. Most important, though, come back and support us next week and tell your horse player friends to do so as well. You don't get many contests where they're nothing extra to play for an extra $20,000 worth of stuff. I'll put one more up there because I appreciate this shout out from Fan of Horse about the Players podcast that dropped yesterday that deliberately was meant to be more evergreen content, talking about more industry matters, the view of our innovation series for one thing, and then that chat with Mark Kramer, who will be back this weekend for another evergreen chat. Okay, here we go. Chris Couples, he was fantastic. He wins the chat and he wins the contest. So that's extremely appropriate for Chris. Let me just update it on here just so I can read this a little bit better. I like what we did last week, actually, Matt. You do the top 10, and then why don't I run through the next 14? That might keep my voice a little bit in better fettle.
And to your point, it doesn't really even matter what their totals are. So I'm just going to run down the names 1 through 10. Number 1, Chris Couples. Number 2, PJ Priscanis. Number 3, Derek Voigt. Number 4, Gregory Lewis. Number 5, Trey Crump. Number 6, Pat. Oh boy, Qualiero. Okay. The 7, Stephen Walsh. The 8, Joe Solito. The 9, David Browning, and the number 10, Casey Rivera with 5730.
We've had a lot of these names getting to the qualifier before, but I don't think we had any of them get tour points. So we're going to have a third week in a row. This is going to be fun as it plays out. It's going to be a dogfight down to the wire, I think, as far as all these different ramifications of the tour go. Let's talk about the rest of our qualifiers, though, for this Saturday contest. Andrew Wright. Hello, Andrew. Aaron Reed, Mark Stovall, Peter Visco, Nick Verderese, John Bowl III, Matt Miller, second week in a row. I know Matt Miller had his name up there. Joseph McKay, Ryan Flanders, the artist simultaneously known as Benny South Street. Good to see that name on the leaderboard. Ed O'Day, Dan Kovaleski. We've had him on the airwaves. He's been an NHC final table participant. Ernest Hay Jr., one of the most loyal listeners to the show. And then it looks like William Bamer, and it went down to 24, right? Yeah, and then 24th and final entrant into Saturday's qualifier, Lou Arellano. Bad luck to Dan Kaplan, who is this week's bubble boy, taking over from our own business manager, Drew Coatney. But congrats to everybody who gets a prize in this contest and everybody who played just for supporting us. I mean, just can't thank you enough. Matt, a closing thought before we send this thing home.
Yeah, I mean, look, here we are. I would say do as much work ahead of time as possible. I've said this before the Breeders' Cup. I'm going to say it leading into the Derby. You don't want to be sitting there trying to sift through 20 horses on the morning of the Derby. That's just not practical, and that's not even including the undercard races, which are going to feature multiple grade ones. Don't forget, Friday is the Kentucky Oaks. We've talked about it. I think you could make a case that it is just as compelling, if not more so, than the Derby on Saturday afternoon for all the reasons that you and I laid out here this afternoon. And I guess it's not even a thought, it's a question. Where are you going to be for next week's show?
Oh, for HorsePlayer Happy Hour? I will be in the hotel in Louisville.
Okay,
we've got our Thurby brunch. I'll plug this too. Doing a Thurby brunch at the new Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation farm outside of Louisville. If folks want to join us for that, trfinc.org/players. Small donation gets you there. While you're there, you can also see the new In the Money Players podcast whiskey. Last year's over there on my shoulder next to the Brooklyn Bunker hat. The new one is a rye whiskey finished in an apple brandy barrel. You can find out how to make a gift that will get you that as a thank you as well. trfinc.org/players. So yeah, I'll go to that, and then I'm just going to come back and grind and work and, write tickets and, basically get everything set and hope Kinchin doesn't try to like drag me out to some steakhouse. That's the plan, is to try to stay sober and healthy and sit with you while we do what I assume will be like a pretty full-blown Derby preview show next week.
And where are you going? I assume you're going to be on site at the track on Saturday?
Yes, I'll go Friday 1,000,000%. Past the champagne, no secret that we're friends with the ownership group there and want to see that in person. But I mean, I can't. It would be shocking result to. I mean, who knows? Maybe there'd be something around Lexington, but I'd probably like to go to the Derby in any case and look it out. There's a small chance that could get waylaid, but in all likelihood, I will be there.
But to your point, next week's show I think is going to be heavy Derby, heavy Oaks, and by then we'll have PPs for both days. So that would be a good opportunity for anybody watching or listening along to fire out questions maybe on some of those other races. Obviously the Turf Classic to me, I'm not saying anything against the Pegasus, but the Turf Classic to me signifies the kickoff of proper turf season here in the States, where we get the big grade one with all the connections coming from east, west, you name it. But then you've got also, the Churchill Downs is going to be run. You're going to have the Distaff, so many different great races on Saturday. And then again, Friday, let's not short shrift or give short change to the girls in the Oaks and the horses on the undercard there.
2-day pick six, a lot of fun things we can talk about. And I'm going to try to get ahead of my work so I can have pretty well formulated thoughts by the time we come on the air next Thursday to do just that. Oh, I have to button this up. The new Barry Meadow book we were talking about is called The Skeptical Handicapper. You can buy it directly from Barry, trpublishing.com. Tell him you heard about it from the In the Money crew, and I have a feeling he'll throw you a little discount for that. If he doesn't, I apologize. But trpublishing.com, it's a great book. I mean, it's just very, if you like numbers and you like racing, it's absolutely worth checking out. All right, so I think it's time for the thank yous. We thanked Craig already. We're not going to thank him again. We'll thank you, Matt Bernier, for all your contributions. We'll thank JK for his role in getting these contests up and running. We'll get a cameo from him. Almost definitely not next week. He'll be on TV himself, but who knows? Maybe we can get him to pop in for half a second from Churchill. It'd be great to see him on one of these broadcasts eventually. Got to thank him. Our friends and partners at the Breeders' Cup have been absolutely wonderful to work with, not least of which Peter Rotundo Jr. Who knows? Maybe we'll see his face on these airwaves before he moves on to greener pastures. But pleasure working with him and the team at the Breeders' Cup, horseplayers.com, Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. But most of all, I want to thank all of you for listening, watching, playing along, making these shows so much fun to do. This show's been a production of In the Money Media and the Breeders' Cup. On the In the Money Media side, our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.